What's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topics Gaming, and I'm here to present a very special and important episode of the People's Questions, where I answer a series of questions that have been sent to me over the past week. Now, as I stated just a few moments ago, this episode in particular is relatively special for a number of reasons. For one, if you happen to have missed my 9-year celebration anniversary video, you would know that this is officially going to be perhaps the last episode of the People's Questions, at least for some time, which is why, as I'm sure you can tell from down below, the comment section has been turned off, because I will not be taking any more questions moving forward. I think when the People's Questions does return sometime in the near future, I'll be sure to let you guys know in advance. But as for this particular episode, I decided that I would try to get as many questions from the comment section of the previous video as I could. And I actually did end up getting a good amount of questions. I think I had like 6, with a couple of them actually being relatively good. So I think, when the People's Questions just come back, I would like to see more episodes like this. However, 3 of these were a little bit too similar, so I'll be kind of answering 3 of them at once. Another thing that hopefully you guys will notice, because I'll be really pissed if no one notices this, but this is actually the first video that I'm actually using for the People's Questions in terms of using a brand new lens that I just picked up. I spent like $150 getting this particular lens, and it's supposed to have a much more heavy focus on me and actually make the background a little bit more blurry than normal. So if it does do that, which I hope it does, please let me know either on Twitter or another video, because I really do look forward to using this particular lens in order to give you guys a much better quality type of video. So before I start answering the primary 6 questions that I did get this episode, if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and press the subscribe button if you happen to be new or just finding me and would like to see more content from me. And the first 3 questions more or less are the same question, and all 3 of these come from Zach Tarf, the Batman of Neo Gotham, and Shadow Desus Gaming. All 3 of you guys pretty much asked the same question, basically going around the fact that EA lost the exclusive rights to Star Wars games, and now Star Wars games can be developed from just about anybody, and how Ubisoft is working on an open Star Wars game, and what are my thoughts? Okay, I'm fine with the idea that we will be getting a lot more Star Wars games from multiple different developers instead of just EA. Now, I'm not complaining that EA has not made some great Star Wars games, because I do think that the last, Star Wars Rogue was a good flight simulator, and I really was impressed by Jedi Fallen Order, which, I'm positive they will be doing a sequel to that, and I will be pumped to get my hands on that one. But I think that with EA not having the exclusive rights, we will see probably more Star Wars games, more diversity in the type of games, and perhaps even more of them. I mean, the more the merrier. So as far as having EA lose the exclusive rights, that doesn't mean we're not going to get EA Star Wars games, but it'll just mean that we'll get probably even more Star Wars games than we normally do. So heck, I'm happy about this announcement that Lucas Films Games is pretty much making it a whole division that will allow more games to come out. I do think that we're through the worst era of Star Wars, and I think we may be experiencing a new renaissance in terms of quality of Star Wars, because The Mandalorian is going great. We've had a few really great games. There's a number of Star Wars shows coming that I personally am looking forward to. I don't know about the films, because I've heard some really polarizing things about the New Order. Apparently the books came out, and there's some mixed feelings about that, so that's having me a little bit concerned. But heck, if Star Wars can get back on track, I'm all for it. And heck, if it starts with the games or the movies, or the comics or the books, heck, I'm totally for it. I'm always going to be a Star Wars fan no matter how bad things get. But heck, if things happen to get back on track, then heck, I'm glad I stuck with it. Next question comes from Cinevic, and you want to know, what aspect of Metal Gear Solid 5 would I say was the biggest disappointment, and are there any changes I think could have changed the reception and quality of the story? The biggest disappointment was the story itself. I mean, I'm not going to complain about the gameplay. If you're talking about the overall look of the game and how the gameplay actually played as a game, it was just fine. It was... Sorry about that, neighbors. it was really just the story that was the big issue. My biggest problem with the story was that they were telling the wrong story, and it has no significance to the over arc of the story. Like, quite literally, the only thing that game adds is it makes a clarification that in the first Metal Gear game, the person you are fighting and you blow up in that Metal Gear was not Big Boss. That apparently was this other guy who was pretending to be Big Boss. But here's the problem. There is absolutely no evidence in that entire game that this Venom Snake was ever working for Big Boss at all. He seemed to be very independent and was doing things on his own. And you're playing as some medic who got facial reconstruction. I mean, if they had said that, I mean, that's why I didn't really buy the whole Keith Sutherland, David Hayter controversy, because, heck, if this was some other medic, of course he wouldn't sound like David Hayter. It makes perfect sense. So that's why that part didn't bother me all that much. And it really had an opportunity to actually tell a story that actually added things. They had the perfect storyline. They had the perfect thing to actually add something to the story. And they didn't do that. And because of that, the entire story of Metal Gear Solid 5 is completely pointless and adds nothing. So what if Venom Snake actually met Liquid when he was a kid? That doesn't add to anything, and that just contradicts a lot of things that we already know. If anything, I've been thinking about making a video about why I believe Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops should get more recognition, because unlike Metal Gear Solid 5, Portable Ops may have a really weird name, but it actually has a lot of significance in its storytelling that actually adds to a number of things that there aren't any other sources. And so I think it's absolutely something that should be canon. But overall, the story was my biggest disappointment, and story is the single most important thing, at least for me. Trust me, a game can have really difficult controls, but if your story is deep enough and compelling enough and a good enough script, heck, I can deal with bad controls or horrible gameplay. And unfortunately, Metal Gear Solid 5 is the complete opposite. Even if you have great gameplay and a crappy story can stop you from getting through a game. That has happened countless times, and that is exactly what happened with Metal Gear Solid 5. And that is why I really hope at some point Konami loses the rights to Metal Gear, it goes to another developer, and they give this franchise the respect it deserves, because it has been far too long since we got a real Metal Gear Solid game. Sorry about that. Little rant. Next question comes from Venom Rules All, and we also have another Metal Gear Solid question. So, 3 Star Wars questions, 2 Metal Gear questions, and a personal question, which I'll be doing next. But Venom Rules All want to know, since Big Boss being defeated by a rookie Snake with nothing but a lighter and a can of hairspray was rather dumb, which it was, what do I think would have been a better way for Snake to defeat his predecessor? Okay, I think a better way to have done that would simply to be have. I'm not saying you don't have a situation where Big Boss isn't like burn off his resources and forces Snake to have to. I would have done something where you had Snake have to outsmart him. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same style as, say, something like we had between Big Boss and the Boss, where they're fighting in this flower meadow. But I think it doesn't need to be as direct as that. But I think what it could have been was just some type of fight in which Snake or Solid Snake had to take what he had learned from Big Boss and somehow use it against him, or maybe even deceived him in some sense. I think the idea of using a can, like, did they? Okay, this was the 80s, but this was either the 80s or the early 90s. But I've actually seen the distance that a can of hairspray and a lighter can go. Like, if you actually try using that, a basic can, the farthest burst of flame you probably could get is a small burst, maybe 3 feet away, which means in order for that to work, you'd have to be really, really, really close in order to make that actually function. So, yeah, like, I would totally be up for a remake of the first 2 Metal Gears and just give you a more compelling fight at least. But yeah, overall, just have it be something where he outsmarts Big Boss. I mean, it makes sense. I think that would solidify Snake developing and stepping out of his template's shadow. So yeah, that's something I would really like to see if they ever really did remake the first 2 Metal Gear games. And this last question of the episode is actually a personal question, and I actually think it is absolutely a perfect question to ask for at least this very specific episode of the People's Questions, since it's going to be some time until the People's Questions comes back. But this question comes from Cyrenaice7 Red Guilty, and you want to know what was the last time I felt being happy? Okay, all right. Well, I would say the last time that I could say I felt truly happy was probably the first half of 2006. At that time, I was a sophomore in high school. I was 15. And at that point, everything was really just going great. I mean, I was having a great school year so far. I had a great amount of friends. I enjoyed my teachers. My parents were not. I hadn't found out that they were getting a divorce yet. I had just gotten back from a trip, seeing my brother when I got to play the PlayStation 3 for the first time. Everything was really going great, and then the second half of that year, that's when things started to really kind of start falling apart. And it was just bad event after bad event. I mean, and then the following 2 years, it just didn't get any. It did not get any easier. And it's not that I haven't had happy moments. I mean, I can say like the last time I had a really happy moment here in Vegas was, and I don't have many of them. Maybe my last birthday, I got to spend it with a friend here, and that was like the first time in like 3 years. I No, I take that back. No, that was my last birthday. I got to spend with a friend, and we went to like two arcades, and that was fun. But I would probably say the happiest moment that I've had here in Vegas in 10 years was when I got to hang out with Rachel and her boyfriend here in Vegas, and I got to see them at a convention, and then we went to dinner at Excalibur, and then we went to like some mall and we walked around a little bit. But just kind of being around those two, it's just it always just kind of removes this veil of depression and sadness, and I can just focus on just enjoying hanging out with two really cool people. And I don't get too many moments like that. But yeah, I would say first half of 2006 was probably the last time I felt entirely happy. Now I've had few happy moments, like whenever I planned a trip to go see my brother in El Paso, I was very happy. I would say like if I planned like a 7 day trip, I would say like the first 4 days I was just happy to be there and to hang out and to talk and to do all these kind of stuff. And then once like the last day or two when I knew I had to go back, I would start getting sad because I didn't want to leave because I knew I'd have to go back to Vegas, and I just hate being in Vegas. And so it's the feeling of knowing that I can't stay in a place that I really do feel happy. Anytime I'm away from Vegas, I'm as happy as a cucumber. But once I get back to reality of knowing that I have to go back to Vegas, that's when I start getting sad. Because I'm a firm person that believes that, and this is initially true for everyone, and everyone's different. But I would not want to establish my roots in the place I grew up. My parents haven't done that. My dad grew up in Maryland, and he was in the military, and he went all over the world. My mom grew up in Compton, California, and now she's living in Las Vegas and has lived in several places all over the world. I'm a firm believer that you should not permanently stay in the place you grew up in. Now, that's not initially true. I know some people that have been in one city or one state their whole lives and have never left it, and they're perfectly happy, and that's fine. But I'm not like that. So if Vegas is the place I grew up in, it's not the place I would want to establish my roots. And almost anywhere else except a few places in California or New York or Detroit or some places in the South would probably be places I wouldn't want to visit. But most other places, I think I'd be pretty happy. So yeah, I've had moments of happiness, but yeah, for the last time, I would say the first half of 2006 was perhaps the last time I felt entirely happy with just how my life was going. Everything was going great. It was a great first half of that year before things started getting out of control. So, yeah, that'll do it for this special episode of People's Questions. I would like to thank everyone that sent in their questions for this episode, as well as everyone who has sent in their questions for the past 450. I think this is episode 454 in like the last 9 years. Crazy to think I've been doing Q&As for 9 years straight, and I don't even think anyone does Q&As anymore. That's why I feel kind of bad. I mean, Rachel, the person who inspired me to even do a Q&A, hasn't done one in like 3 years. So I feel a little bit weird that I'm still doing a Q&A, weekly Q&A, since I don't know anyone that does. But again, just want to thank everyone who has continued to support me. I promise you the people's questions will come back probably sometime later this year once things get situated. And if you guys have any questions you would like to ask me, you can do them in either any other video, or heck, even better, just send it to me directly on Twitter or Facebook. The links are down below. Trust me, if you send me a question, or if you follow me on Twitter or friend me on Facebook, I promise you, I will follow you and friend you back, and heck, you can have full out conversations with me. I mean, trust me, I love having conversations. I don't get many people who watch my YouTube channel that actually contact me on my social media outlets, and heck, at some points I can even do a quick live stream if I'm not doing anything. So again, thank you again for everyone who's watching. I hope you guys will hopefully enjoy the rest of 2021. Hopefully it'll be a much better year than 2020. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.